Ladies and gentlemen, it appears that I have girl-bossed a little too close to the sun.
Not again.
So last August, I made the craziest decision of my entire life.
That's why I'm running for Congress.
But now the big day has come and gone. The election is done, and we won. I'm just kidding, we lost. But did we really though? Yes, if you're being literal, we very much did. But I'm going somewhere with this, I promise. Low-key, it was closer than we had any right to be. Short term though, that means Spicy Me is back.
We are fucking back! We're back!
Just kidding, Spicy Me clearly never went anywhere. So for those who don't know, catching everyone up to speed, last year I announced that I would be directly challenging my congressman, a Republican by the name of Tony Gonzales, who had previously voted for gun control amongst several other issues that I had a bit of a problem with. I did this by opening the most insane chapter of my life to date and running against him for US Congress. This is Texas District 23, the congressional district that stretches all the way from San Antonio to El Paso, making it the biggest district in all of Texas and the biggest border district with Mexico in the entire United States. Now, the original primary election was held on March 5th with 5 people in the race. The incumbent, meaning the current congressman who holds that seat, Tony Gonzales, and 4 challengers, including myself, who were competing to replace him in that seat. Now, statistically, winning that race outright was basically impossible. But I had a trick up my sleeve. You see, we didn't have to win, we just had to ensure that Tony didn't get above 50%. Because if he didn't achieve 50%, then that means, according to Texas election law, he would be forced into what's called a runoff.
U.S. District 23.
So that seat currently belongs to Tony Gonzales. We know that 4 people challenged him for the nomination, but right now, it looks like this is going to go to a runoff.
That's where instead of all 5 candidates competing for 1 seat, the incumbent then has to go into a 1 versus 1 special election with whoever came in second place.
2 Republican congressional candidates with opposing gun policy views in Texas are facing off in a high-stakes primary runoff today.
So on March 5th, we succeeded, with Tony only getting 45% of the vote and us getting 25%. What happened next was the wildest 3 months of my entire life. I'll spare the details for now, but on the cliff notes, I've been running multiple businesses, this YouTube channel, the Unsubscribed podcast, finishing the AK-50 and more, while also in a 1v1 deathmatch with my sitting congressman. And I almost won. But now that we spent the whole video edging you, let's talk about the results. Despite the fact that they outspent us almost 10-1, despite the almost 9-month-long smear campaign the establishment waged against me, they almost lost to a YouTuber.
How embarrassing.
I would say we lost 51-49, but it's actually closer than that. With almost 800,000 people living in Texas District 23, we only lost by about 400 votes. On top of that, we actually won the majority of the counties in the district, 17 out of 29 to be exact. And we had the overwhelming support from the majority of the delegates from throughout the district. But all said and done, no need to huff copium, we did fall slightly short. But that begs the real question, what was our goal? I mean, going into this, we already knew this would be a radically uphill fight. We're going up against an incumbent, which right out of the gate makes this race damn near impossible because statistically incumbents almost always win primary fights. They already have the name recognition, the support of the establishment, donors on speed dial. They already have a team in place. It's kind of like attacking a fortified machine gun nest using only you, a couple of your boys, and sporks. The odds are not in your favor. But by winning second place in a primary and forcing them into a runoff election, we scared the dog shit out of the establishment. It's very clear from the way that the media talked about me before the election on March 5th, they considered me a joke candidate. A flash in the pan, nobody's serious, their investment was safe. But after March 5th, the game kind of changed.
It looks like this is going to go to a runoff, 46% support with Tony Gonzales.
Suddenly, all of the biggest guns of the establishment were pointed directly at me. They realized the seat wasn't safe and that I was a threat.
One of the things we wanted to ask him is what he thought about his race likely heading into a runoff.
Just for a little bit of context, the last primary in this district, Tony walked away with 78% of the vote. Now he was down to almost half that, 45%, and forced into a special election. It was just a clear sign that the voters of the district were not happy with their elected representative and were willing to show up to the polls and voice their grievances. All said and done, about $10 million was spent in this race, dragging my name through the mud and attempting to assassinate my character. Not just by my opponent, but by outside groups who had a vested interest in, how would I say that, making sure somebody like me didn't get that seat. But we had something on our side that they couldn't pay for. The grassroots, the volunteers, the genuine enthusiasm from people who wanted to make change for the better. And not just the people who wanted change, but the people who were willing to show up and put in the work to try to get it. So even though we had literally every card in the book stacked against us, I mean literally every one, the entire might of the establishment, $10 million spent attacking us. Even Matthew McConaughey and the Speaker of the fucking House coming down to try to take us out. We were still only 400 votes away. That's mind-blowing to me. Me, as somebody who has no political background, never held public office ever before in my life, never run for any sort of political office. The definition of a political outsider, going up against one of the best funded incumbents in the state of Texas, and then watching the establishment bombard us from orbit with all of their big money guns, from radio to TV to everything they could do, stacks of mail, everything. 400 votes. That's wild. Truth is, while we couldn't pull it off this time, I couldn't be more proud of all of you. A lot of people, friends of mine, whoever, a lot of people have asked me, how I'm doing. I think a lot of people expect me to be, angry, upset, what have you with the results. Honestly, the only emotion I have any room for right now is just gratitude. I am so fucking grateful for my supporters, my volunteers, my block walkers, my door knockers, the people who donated, the people who supported from afar. You guys really pulled this whole thing together, and for that, thank you. It can't be overstated what we did here, because I don't come from the political class. Like, I'm not, I am the opposite of what you would consider an establishment candidate. At the end of the day, I'm just a normal guy. In fact, I'm worse than that. I'm probably one of the worst candidates you could throw at this race, because I haven't lived my life really clean like somebody you would expect who's running for public office, who has to pretend like they've never said the fuck word before. I'm just a regular guy. Most importantly, I'm just a citizen of the district who is unhappy with my elected representative. And to be able to pull off the race that we did with everything that was thrown against us is statistically impossible. This should have never, I keep saying this, but I'm dead serious. It should have never gotten this close, but we were able to do it thanks to you. Because we really did do something here, and we proved a concept that really hasn't been tried before. It really never did this level of success. We're showing that through social media and through the power of, the age of information, everybody having a smartphone in their pocket, you really can make a difference. That if you're telling the truth, if you're spreading the right message, and if you just have the right team behind you, that deep state money doesn't spend the way it used to. Now, there are two big things to cover in this real quick. One, I see a lot of people on YouTube and on Twitter and things like that, which Twitter was my favorite battleground of this race. I mean, if you didn't catch up with the Twitter escapades, dear God, bullying the establishment's become one of my favorite pastimes. There were a lot of people that weren't really familiar with how we ran this campaign, saying that, this was an online-only thing. You shouldn't have just banked on YouTube and all these other things. I had been working my ass off these last few months behind the scenes in a lot of ways that most of you probably aren't familiar with, because we didn't really show it a lot online. We used YouTube, we used Twitter and everything for fundraising, which has been fantastic, and we appreciate that. But we also had a very heavy presence in person and through traditional media. Throughout the last couple months, we did over 100 in-person campaign events, speaking engagements, things like that, in dozens of different cities, all throughout all 29 counties in District 23. And while we didn't have the money that the establishment was willing to throw at us, we did use whatever we had strategically. We invested in mailers and texts, digital, cable, satellite ads. We left no stone unturned and ran this as a guerrilla campaign to the best of our ability. And on that note, again, I do really just want to thank my team so much. I had one of the best teams you could ever ask for. People that I was privileged to be able to work with and would gladly work with again if we if we ever ended up doing this again. Which I'm happy to never have to do if I don't need to, but what I want has never been the most important factor in decisions like this. Now to the other big issue. Due to how close it was and a couple of inconsistencies due to the counting, the night of the election, a lot of people have been asking about a recount. I do not expect a recount to change the outcome of this election. Statistically, it's highly unlikely, and we don't have any real evidence of anything that we think would move the needle enough to be able to overturn the results. That being said, we are going through the process of requesting a formal recount.
Well, YouTuber Brandon Herrera will request a recount in his Republican primary runoff election against U.S. Representative Tony Gonzales.
Recounts can be expensive, which is why we're doing it strategically. We've had a couple people reach out to offer to help to pay for part of it. And whatever else is left over, I'm happy to pay for out of pocket. Again, not because I think it's going to change the outcome of the election, but if there's a chance that the election results weren't tallied the way they should have been, I feel like I owe it to my supporters, my volunteers, the people who went to bat for me, to make sure that we've crossed every T and dotted every I. So again, don't hold your breath, but yes, that is currently taking place. So now to loop all the way back around to a question that I posed earlier. What the fuck was the goal of this whole thing? What were we trying to do? Now, obviously, I wouldn't have run if I didn't think that there was a chance that we could win, which we've proved that there was definitely a chance. But as far as the message that we just sent to DC, I think it goes above and beyond, like I said earlier, scaring the shit out of the establishment. That's awesome to do, don't get me wrong, down to do it any day of the week. That wasn't quite the entirety of the goal, though. It comes down to three real things. One, we made the establishment and the Uniparty spend a fuckload of money. They were probably planning to spend $2 to $3 million on this race. Because you got involved, and because we got this army of shit posters behind us that actually posed a tangible threat, they went in the hole about $10 million to keep this seat. Think about that for a minute. That's fucking incredible. The second part, and this actually ties into something that I've talked about on the channel before in reference to the race, we just fired a massive shot off the bow. I said this from day one, even if we didn't take this seat, and even if we didn't win this race, it's kind of like a throwback to King Leonidas in 300, talking to Xerxes. It's just a reminder that even a god king can bleed. See, this is the most my congressman has ever had to fight for his seat since he's been elected. And as we've talked about before, it was fucking tight. Like, this was a slugfest. And so what I'm hoping this is said loud and clear, and I have reason to believe that it has, is that, look, your constituents aren't happy with the way that you've been voting. The voters of the district want a strong conservative, somebody who's going to stand up for the Constitution, stand up for their rights, and that if the person in the seat isn't willing to be that, then we will stand up and we will see you at the polls. And I don't think that message clicked before, but I feel like it has now. I feel like we've proved it, even as much as they threw at us. It was about 50-50. At the bare minimum, even if you don't get voted out, it is going to be an ugly, bare knuckle, nails out kind of fight in the mud. Which brings me over to my third and final point. Now, this third thing is something that I've already been able to see with my own eyes, which gives me just a lot of hope. Third goal was to inspire hundreds, if not thousands of you, to take action in your own communities in your own way. You don't have to jump off the deep end like I did and, run for federal office, U.S. House of Representatives, even local stuff, even just getting involved with your local politics. Things like that really do make a difference. I know we couldn't have come anywhere near where we did if it wasn't for the help of grassroots groups and people that were just willing to go out and spend their own time volunteering for us. I also just now realized how dramatic this got, given that I turned off my overhead light, but you know what? It fits the mood. Fuck it. You can go out and you can be that difference. And I have never believed that more in my life than I do right now, given what I've just experienced in the last few months. It fucking matters. And I am so privileged to be able to see the amount of people who helped me with my campaign right here in the district. A lot of whom have never gotten involved in a political race before in their entire lives. Speaking directly to you now, I really hope you keep at it. It's easy to complain on the internet. You guys are actually doing something. I know that in 2012, when Ron Paul originally ran for president, even though he didn't win, he inspired an entire new generation. People who wanted less government, more liberty. It was a huge wave of the more libertarian conservative types, including myself. Ron Paul was a massive inspiration to me. And if my congressional race can inspire even a fraction of what that built, I consider that a life. That's more than I could ever ask for. So man, just looking back on it, what a wild ride this has been. Thank you guys so much. Oh, thank you to everybody who supported us, everybody who donated, everybody who endorsed us, that put their name on the line. It really has been the ride of a lifetime, but it's time to get back to doing what I do best. Blowing shit up and making fucked up jokes on the internet. Although not that I ever stopped.
Not that we went anywhere. Not that we went anywhere.
I just want to say to you, the audience, I appreciate the fact that you've stood with me through all this entire thing. I know it's been crazy. I know the content hasn't been as regular as it usually is. Your support has meant the world, and we really were able to do something that is truly special. Oh, and I guess there's really no reason to sell Herrera for Congress shirts anymore. We're probably just going to do a last run of these, just kind of as just a final blowout, like just a, I don't know what you'd call that, like a limited edition, like nostalgia kind of run. They're still available at Bunker Branding. I've got the links in the description and in the pinned comment. And while you're down in the description and in the pinned comment, you can always check out SDI.edu, where you can get your start in gunsmithing and weapons technology. Content's going back to normal in a couple days. In fact, I've got some new stuff planned, including some spicy stuff that I probably shouldn't have done while I was running that I've just kind of been saving up for now. So at the end of the day, we had a good run, put everything we had out on the table, and reminded Xerxes that he could bleed. So again, thank you guys so much for your support. Content goes back to normal next week, but I just, again, for the last time this video, I know I've been kind of mushy about it, but I just wanted to say I appreciate you. And I appreciate you staying all the way to the end. And I will see you sexy YouTube mother lovers in the next video. Thanks.